Hi, and welcome to session 4 in our series called Jesus, God with Us. You know, throughout the whole series, we've been looking at the book of Matthew, right? And so let's do a quick recap if we could. In our first session, we looked at who was Jesus, right? And so that is, Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. And we looked at chapter 1 broadly to chapter 4. Then in session 2, which was the big chunk of reading of Matthew, we looked at the public life of Jesus. So Jesus goes public, and that's chapter 4 all the way to chapter 16. And we looked at what would God do if he was actually among us. And we saw that Jesus was the kind of guy who helped the poor, healed the sick. He would speak about the kingdom of God, and you'd see amazing countercultural truths put out there by Jesus. Then in our last session, we looked at what Jesus was like in private when he's talking to his best friends and his disciples. And that's Matthew 16, sort of all the way to chapter 18. And we asked the question, why? Why does Jesus do what he does? And we get all the way now today to Jesus confronts. And we're in Matthew 19 all the way to Matthew 25 verse 46. And our key passage for today is found in Matthew 19, 28 to 30. It's up there on the screen, you can read it, but I'm just going to summarize it with the words that are at the end, right? Because it says a whole bunch of things about Jesus, and then it gets to the end and it says this, which is repeated many times. But many who are first will be last, and the last shall be first. Throughout this session, we're going to be talking about the clash of two kingdoms. Jesus is going to confront the people of the kingdom of earth. You cannot be in two kingdoms. You cannot be in both. So all the way up to here, Jesus is talking about his kingdom. You're talking about the kingdom of God. He's explaining who he's like, right? And he's introducing you to who he is, why he does what he does, how he's a fulfillment of prophecy. And really, everybody is kind of just trying to figure out, are you who you say is? What kind of God are you? What kind of Messiah are you, right? And then it gets to the end, and Jesus is coming to the fulfillment of his mission here on earth. And he gets to the stage where he goes, hey, now that you know that my kingdom is so different, and now that you know that I am so different, and now that Jesus is well and truly here, that means he is making an impact in society. His name is being proclaimed. There's crowds and crowds of people coming. Controversy is rising. People are about to get to the stage where they want him killed because he can't be silenced. Jesus heads to Jerusalem and he begins the conflict. He begins the confrontation. Because ultimately, we will not, as you will see in the book of Matthew, we will not actually just be able to live in the kingdom of this world, do as we please, live in sin, and be saved. Something must change. And so Jesus, in probably the most epic story of this set, is the cleansing of the temple. Jesus goes into the temple right at the heart of religion, and he overturns the tables. He calls them all hypocrites. He calls them out for who they are, pretending to be the church of God, yet kind of just being a marketplace for commerce, kind of being a conduit for the greed and the pride of the religious people, kind of just making up rules and religion of a system made by man. And he overturns it, he confronts it, and he says, that is not the kingdom of God. And you're going to have to choose between these two kingdoms, because seemingly whatever is first according to your kingdom might end up being last. And all the things that you despise, that you say, oh my goodness, this is like the last of the last. they might very well be the first in my kingdom. And so he proposes these two kingdoms. And his fifth discourse, his last discourse in the book of Matthew, is actually the discourse about judgment. And so I'm hoping you'll take some time to read it, because Jesus basically says there will come a day of reckoning where the owner comes back and asks, what have you done with the talents I've given you? Or the day of reckoning when the husband comes to meet his bride-to-be and they run out of oil and they were not there waiting. I'm hoping that through this discussion, you will go back through everything that you've read in the book of Matthew and you would try to articulate or figure out what are the differences between these two kingdoms. Why does Jesus talk about these two kingdoms? Why are they so different? And why is there such a conflict between them? Today, we ask the question, where? So we've done who is Jesus? What would he do? Why does Jesus do what he does? And today we want to ask, where? Where will you inhabit? Which kingdom will you live in? Where will you be? Will you be in the kingdom of God, in the kingdom of heaven, or will you be in the kingdom of earth and the world system and the way things are here? Because Jesus would say to his people in Matthew, but he would also say to you, you can't be in both. And you're going to have to choose where you're going to live. So I hope you have a great discussion today. God bless.